Tolkien spent many of his formative years as a child and as a young man in the environment of the Birmingham Oratory, where, after his mother's death, he was under the guardianship of Father Francis Morgan, a priest of the oratory, and also had the friendship and mentoring of many of the other Oratorian fathers. So during this formative time in his life, he was taking in the spirituality of the congregation of St. Philip Neri. That's the congregation of the oratory. Now, St. Philip Neri, the founder of the oratory, the 16th century priest, had characteristically humor and humility at the heart of his spirituality. And there's an anecdote about St. Philip that really shows this. At one point, Philip had been invited to a party given by one of the richest men in Rome. And he went to the party, but he did so having shaved off half of his beard. He looked like an idiot. So when he got to the party, everyone expecting a really dignified and holy man saw this foolish-looking guy and didn't take him seriously, laughed at him. And that was the point. He had discerned that his host was actually just trying to show off. Look at how pious I am. I can get the most holy man in Rome to come to my party. And by showing up looking foolish, he's able to deflate that spiritual pride and also prevent himself from getting puffed up. Look at how important I am. So Philip is using humor and humility together for a serious spiritual purpose. Now, if we look at Tolkien, especially as we look at his later life, after he'd become a world-famous author and a renowned professor at Oxford, we can see that same combination of humor and humility. How Tolkien once remarked about himself, he says, "I have a very simple sense of humor, which even my most appreciative critics find tiresome." And he exhibits that humor on many occasions in a way that adds to his humility. There's one example. At one point, he was doing some shopping, and he must have sneezed or coughed, but his dentures end up in his hand along with his change. But rather than sort of being embarrassed and trying to hide what had happened, he just jokingly hands the whole lot to the shopkeeper with his change. And it's a quite an undignified anecdote. Like, really? This is supposed to be this dignified professor and famous author? Isn't this a little gross, a little silly? But I think that was the point. I think Tolkien was very aware of the need to stay grounded and not let his fame go to his head. Now, if we look at Middle-earth and we think about who are the most grounded characters, who are the down-to-earth characters, we should probably think of the hobbits, who are literally down-to-earth because they're the smallest, they're the closest to the ground. They're the characters who bring the quality of humor to the story, especially Merry and Pippin. And they're the characters who embody humility more than any others. They're the simple, almost childlike characters as contrasting to the kings and the wise elves. And so we see them embodying these characteristics. And indeed, that's how Tolkien himself was viewing the hobbits. He said, speaking of the hobbits, he said that he saw the value of hobbits in providing subjects for ennoblement and heroes more praiseworthy than the professionals. And he goes on to add, "We are all equal before the great author who has put down the mighty from their seats and has exalted the humble."